Welcome to the Hard Questions set. Now, that's the magic of television, brother. From one place to the next. This is where pastors come together. All these men are pastors to tackle hard questions right out of the Bible. And there's lots of hard questions out there. I'm the moderator of sort, and on today's panel,
Dr. William R. Glazer. No, I'm sorry. No. He's always sitting in this spot. Pastor J. Anthony Gilbert, Kingdom Restoration Christian Center, Pittsburgh, PA.
Chris Gibbs, pastor, Crossway Church in the Mars area.
The Pete Giacalone from the Rainbow Temple Assembly of God Church in McKeesport, Pennsylvania. It's football season.
it is football season. Thank God.
Yeah, Broncos. I'm from Colorado. Larry Russell from Shepherd's Heart Ministry.
Well, Larry, we're in trouble already. remember when you're in Rome? No, I'm just.
Yeah.
We're in Pittsburgh, and you know the Steelers are looking good, man. The preseason. When's our first game?
I have no idea.
Oh, I know. When do you guys know? I think it's Sunday, and I think we're playing. Oh, my mind. I'll tell you in just a minute because it's not something we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about issues. Now, here's a question. It comes from one of our viewers. Does Proverbs 26:4 and 26:5 contradict? Okay. You may say, what does those scriptures say? Do not, at 26:5, do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest also you be like him. So there's 24. Now 5, answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in your eyes. So for the novice reader of that, they go, well, that's contradictory. What do you say, Pete?
What would happen when I was studying this, and again, at first glance, you could say, oh, man, this does look like it's contradicting, but it doesn't. What I do to the reader, to people who called in, what I'll do when I have problems like this, I'll go to different commentaries, not only commentaries, but different versions. Thank you, of the Bible. So I immediately went to the Amplified. And the Amplified really cleared up much, but then I went to the New Living Edition.
Well, tell us.
And it says this: do not answer the foolish arguments of fools, or you become as foolish as they are. Be sure to answer the foolish arguments of fools, or they'll become wise in their own estimation. So when you look at it like that, it really makes a lot of sense. In other words, first of all, let's deal with number one. Don't answer the foolish arguments of fools, or you become as foolish. Paul was even goaded into this in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, where Paul's talking about they made him feel to be least of all the apostles. And Paul had to go into his boast. And he says, I'm boasting as a fool. He says, I don't want to be here, but you goaded me into this. But I'll let others do.
Pastor Chris, what do you got?
Yeah, well, the Jewish Talmud kind of teaches us with this that in these two statements, the first one is, hey, if this is something that can just be left alone, leave it alone. Okay, you can be silent sometimes is the best answer to some things. Don't get sucked into their level. Whereas the second one says, hey, there are certain things that fool may say that you need to speak up in a humble way, but in a boldness. I mean, think about Jesus. There were certain things that Jesus wouldn't answer. He wasn't going to go down to their level, but there were certain things that they would say. They would say, listen, this is what the truth says. And I think we just got to be careful with our motivations, that we don't allow anger to expose the anger inside of us. We get so angry and we throw that word righteous indignation around. But listen, if righteous indignation brings out indignation that's not righteous out of you, it's not from God.
Well, you know, I look at it too, in that a fool asks foolish questions. So you can't really answer a foolish question. You need to deal with the fool. So he's saying, don't worry about the foolish questions. Deal with the fool of the individual. You know, and sometimes people will ask certain questions about certain things, and I love what you said about with Jesus. You know, a lot of times he wouldn't even go there. You know, because sometimes they're just going to take you, and you end up going down that slippery slope dealing with certain people. And as pastors, well, I'm sure we've all had different people we've had to deal with.
And you look like the fool.
Exactly.
We had a new Colorado Bronco fan here.
That's right.
What do you say, Pastor?
Well, I think sometimes we want to bring logic to an illogical situation. And whenever you have a fool that brings in his stuff and you get sucked into it, now you're trying to argue with something that makes no sense to begin with. And so I think, yes, we can't get sucked into arguments like that. And then on the flip side, there are times when we have to confront. That's all there is to it. We can't let it go by.
I want to expand on this question for my own personal, my personal benefit. The Bible, especially Proverbs, has a lot of references to fool. What does that word mean? What is a fool as reference to, you know, because we got a colloquial definition for a fool, but what does it mean in Proverbs when it talks about when Solomon's talking about a fool?
Well, I personally believe that a fool is an individual that has the knowledge but refuses to apply it. I call it an educated fool. Is when you have the knowledge, you have the insight, you have the revelation. You can't be a fool if you're unlearned, you're ignorant. So a fool has to have the ability to know. It can look and say, well, I see what that says. It's kind of like if you looked into a mirror, had a bunch of spinach in your teeth, you see it, but you just leave it there. You're a fool. You see what's wrong, you need to make the adjustment. So that's my personal definition of what I feel foolish.
Yeah, you know what, and I like to go back to the Hebrew, and the Hebrew, listen to this, the Hebrew word for fool is actually a word for fat. And it's a word for fat. And you think about it, they're so full of themselves that they become fat-headed. They become stubborn. They're so full that they're right no matter what you say. You cannot argue with a fool because they have every answer. They know everything about everything. They're so fat where the Bible says we need to exercise and work out some things in fear and trembling so that we can be fit and ready for service.
That's good.
And we're even warned in Paul's teachings to avoid foolish and vain questions because it only brings in disputes and division. So there comes a time for those who are viewing, when we as a pastor, you ask us something, it's not that we're ignoring you. We
just don't know the answer. Don't know the answer. What do you think?
I just think that anytime we look at someone that is so into themselves, I had a guy that worked for us one time, and he was 26 years old, and I said, you know what, you know the same amount that I knew when I was your age, everything. And I think a fool is somebody that knows everything or thinks they know everything, and they're going to make sure that they impart it to everyone else.
Now, as pastors, you don't have that relationship. No one in your world's that way, right? Nah, those are just people in my world.
Well, that was a foolish comment that I'm not going to answer.
Oh, no, man. No.
we love you, Don.
I'm glad that we got a definition for those two scriptures and for what a fool is. Let's not think we know everything. We don't know everything. In fact, we know very little. I'll confess, I know very little. Very little. I want to learn more. I want to grow in my faith. I want to grow in my knowledge. I want to be what God's called me to be. I hope you do too. That's why we do hard questions. Send us your hard question to hardquestions@ctvn.org, or simply just call the number on the screen right now. You can call them right now. One of our prayer partners will take the call and give us your question. Give us your question. We'll be right back.